Today, we're diving into Canada's 2025 federal budget. And according to the government itself, this is way more than just a routine update. They're framing this as a massive turning point for the economy, and it all boils down to three big ideas: supercharging growth, tackling affordability, and totally reforming how the government spends money to pay for it all.
And listen to this. Right from the get-go, the budget uses this incredibly dramatic language, a rupture. I mean, that word alone immediately sets a tone of really high stakes and massive change. The argument is that the stable world we thought we knew, with predictable trade and supply chains you could count on, is basically over.
So, before we even get to the what, the budget spends a lot of time on the why. It lays out all the major challenges both at home and around the world that this whole plan is supposed to fix.
The big argument here is that all this global instability, well, it's not just some headline you read about. No, it's actually hitting you and me right in the wallet. You've got the high cost of living, you've got supply chains getting all messed up. All of this creates a ton of economic uncertainty that can really stop investment and growth in its tracks.
Now this chart right here, it gets to the absolute heart of a key Canadian problem: productivity. Basically what you're seeing is that compared to our peers in the G7, Canada's output for every hour worked is falling behind. The budget makes it super clear that closing this gap is absolutely essential if we want to see higher wages and a stronger economy for everyone. So that really brings us to the big question, right? You've got this chaotic world and this nagging productivity problem at home. So what's the actual plan? Well, the budget lays out a three-part answer.
All right, first up is the long game, supercharging the economy. And we're not talking about little tweaks around the edges here. The whole focus is on these huge foundational investments that are designed to drive growth for decades to come.
And to sell this idea, the budget actually looks back at Canadian history. It's comparing this plan to those massive nation-building projects like the railway. The thinking is, hey, back then it was steel rails connecting the country. Today, strategic investments in things like clean power grids and modern trade corridors can be just as much of a game changer.
And they are definitely not messing around when it comes to the price tag. We're talking $115 billion, and that's over just 5 years, all of it aimed at core public infrastructure. The goal is pretty simple: build the physical nuts and bolts for a more productive, modern economy. Okay, so you've got government spending, but how do you get businesses to invest too? Well, one of the main tools they're proposing is this productivity super deduction. It sounds complicated, but it's really not. All it means is it's going to be way cheaper for a company to invest in the tools, the tech, and the machinery that makes their workers more efficient. And this chart, it shows you exactly what that policy does. See that marginal effective tax rate? That's just a fancy way of saying the total tax a business pays on a new investment. By dropping that rate way down, the policy aims to make Canada a much more attractive place for businesses to spend on growth. It's a direct attack on that productivity gap we were just talking about. But it's not just one policy. The plan really attacks the problem from a bunch of different angles. You've got things like overhauling R&D tax credits, putting money into a national AI strategy, and even making it easier for skilled immigrants to get their credentials recognized and get on a faster track to becoming permanent residents. So if that first part is all about the long-term economic picture, this second part is all about the here and now. This is the affordability plan, and it's aimed squarely at the high cost of living, with measures designed to give people some direct financial relief. And what does that actually look like? Well, we're talking about some pretty concrete stuff. A new tax cut aimed at the middle class, making the National School Food Program a permanent thing, and creating a system so low-income Canadians automatically get the federal benefits they're supposed to get. No more jumping through hoops. And then, listed right here in this affordability section, the budget lays out its plan to cancel the consumer carbon price. It's presented as a core part of the strategy to lower everyday costs for Canadians. Okay, so you're probably wondering, with all this new spending and these tax cuts, where's the money coming from? That brings us to the third and final part of the plan: spending less by reforming the government itself. So here's the government's reasoning. They point out that the federal public service has grown by over 40% in just a decade. They're basically saying that's just not sustainable. So the goal they've set is to right-size everything and bring the workforce back to what they call a more manageable level. And the target they've set is, well, it's a big one: $60 billion. That's the total amount in savings and new revenues they're aiming for over the next 5 years. This is the money they plan to use to pay for all those other priorities we just talked about. So how exactly do they plan on finding $60 billion? Well, the strategy basically breaks down into 3 steps. First, they're going to do a massive top-to-bottom review of all government spending.
Second, they'll shrink the workforce, mostly through attrition, so just not replacing people who retire or quit. And third, they want to lean heavily on new tech, like AI, to try to make government services run a whole lot smoother and cheaper.
So there you have it. That's the plan in a nutshell. Invest big for growth, help with affordability now, and reform government spending to make it all happen. But, and this is a big but, the budget itself ends on a very cautious note when it looks at what's coming down the road. It comes right out and says that in this world of rupture, there are just no guarantees. In fact, the document itself maps out completely different futures for the economy. A downside scenario if things go badly, and an upside one if things go well. They're admitting that so much of this depends on global events that are totally out of Canada's control. So at the end of the day, the budget lays out a very clear, very ambitious plan for a world that's changing fast. But it also admits that the future is anything but certain. And that leaves us with the big question, doesn't it? With so much on the line, which future will Canada actually end up building?